Hi and welcome to Swedish Plant Guys. In this video we talk about cold damage to indoor tropical plants, and we will divide this video up into 4 parts. First, symptoms. What does a cold damaged plant look like? Second, what is actually happening inside of the plant when it gets damaged by cold temperatures? Third, what can you do if you have a cold damaged plant? And of course, fourth, how can we prevent this from ever happening? Now we will leave timestamps in the description down below so you can jump forward if you want to, but we always recommend you to watch the entire video to get everything. If you like this video, please like and subscribe to our channel for more information on plants. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram where you can get sneak previews on upcoming videos and sometimes a little bit more. So starting off with the symptoms. What does a cold damaged plant look like? Well, it can differ quite a bit depending on how severe the damage is. And also, has it been exposed to freezing temperatures or just cold temperatures? Now we have different types of cold damaged plants here in the studio and we're going to show you all of them. But we also have a plant here that is not damaged. This has been standing inside all the time, so this is our reference point. We will compare this to the other plants here. So starting off with light cold damage. Now I have a plant here that is only lightly damaged by cold temperatures. Now it doesn't look that damaged, it doesn't have a lot of leaves, but it started off like this when we put it outside. But when we go close to this plant in a while, you can see that there is actually things happening. What we did to this plant is that it has been standing outside in approximately 4 degrees Celsius, which is 40 degrees Fahrenheit. And it's been standing outside for almost 12 hours. So what has happened to this plant in that time? Well, as I said, just looking at this, I first thought that nothing has happened. However, there is a slight difference and it has been damaged. But only way to see that is actually to go really, really close. So if we go close to this plant here and we can look on the leaves here, you can see that this leaf here is actually a little bit bubbly. It has small dents on it. And if I also touch that leaf, I can feel that something is wrong here. It doesn't have that thickness to it as our reference point here. It's almost as if it's been dried out. Now it's not wilting, it's not hanging, but it is flatter. So something has happened to this plant. And concerning these types of damages to a plant, it can actually take quite a while before it shows itself. If you have light cold damage that is not freezing temperatures, it can take up from 2 to 5 days before you see the complete damage to the plant. It takes that long period of time for it to show you what's happened. Now, I'm also going to show you on dragon plants as well. Now, dragon plants are extremely sensitive to cold. So I have a dragon plant here that has draft issues. It has been standing in a place where it has cold drafts. And that cold draft has been there for a couple of months. And I'll show you the damage. So this is a dragon plant. This is one of the most common varieties of dragon plants. This is a Janet Lind, of the variety Janet Lind. And as I said, it's been cold damaged by drafts, cold drafts. And usually you do not notice that until it shows damage, and that can take quite some time before that happens. And I'm going to show you on the leaves here, because the plant actually looks like it's feeling well. But when you get close to the plant, you can see that there are damage to the leaves. And it looks like this. Something has happened to most of the leaves. It's not all green. It has these spots on them that are light green, or I should even say they're a little bit grayish in color. And almost all of the leaves have this damage. If you get this, then you know that it's probably cold damage from a long period of time, but it's not freezing damage, it's just a little bit under what that plant can handle. So moving on to what we call medium cold damage to a plant. That usually means that the plant has been exposed to freezing temperatures. That means below 0 degrees Celsius, which is 32 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, depending on the species of plants, that exposure time can mean a lot. For instance, on the Aglonema here, they can actually withstand freezing temperatures a little bit longer than the dragon plant. The dragon plant is harmed almost immediately to freezing temperatures. But what does it look like? Well, we have a plant here that has been exposed to what we call medium cold damage. Now, if we have our reference point again here, this time you can actually see that the plant, something has happened to the plant. It's not feeling well. It doesn't have that stand it had before. The leaves are actually starting to wilter a little bit, and when I touch the leaves, they almost feel wet. They have this glossy, just wrong feeling to them. And I'll take you in even closer here to take a look at that. Now, they are really, really wilting here, or drooping if you prefer calling it that. You can also see that the coloration is starting to change as well. The tips of the leaves and almost 60 to 70% of the leaves are actually turning dark, almost black. Now, this means that you have at least medium cold damage to this plant. Now, the good thing about this is that I actually see that some of the leaves here are not harmed. Some of the lower leaves here, I have, well, at least one, maybe two leaves here that are not droopy, that have the same coloration, and I can feel that they are not this soft, almost wet, droopy feeling to them. So we can probably save this plant, but we'll talk about that later. Now, if we look at the dragon plant instead, it shows in a completely different way. Now, what I failed to mention is that this Aglonema here was exposed to about -4 degrees Celsius, which is around 25 degrees Fahrenheit. And it was exposed to that cold for about 15 minutes. Now, I should say that it was a windy day, so the actual temperature was probably maybe 7 or 8 or 9 degrees minus Celsius. So it's actually a lot more than what the temperature meters showed. And the dragon plant here was exposed to the same temperature at the same time, but as I had the Aglonema out for around 15 minutes, the dragon plant was only out in this cold for about 5 minutes, because I know that if I had it 15 minutes, it would probably die. So in just 5 minutes in this cold, we got these injuries here. And I'll show you on the detail cam here as well, on the leaves. Now, this is what I call also medium damage. Now, the damage itself is quite severe since you have these really, really black spots on the leaves. And you can see that big chunks of the leaves are actually dead. They are extremely injured from this. And that is only for 5 minutes exposure to a couple of degrees below zero. So then, what does a severely damaged tropical plant look like? Well, it's total collapse. And usually there's no way to save that plant. Usually. And I'll show you here. Now, this Aglaonema Maria has been standing in the same type of cold, 4 degrees minus Celsius, which is about 25 degrees Fahrenheit, but I left it outside for more than an hour. As I said, there was a heavy wind as well, so it was even colder. Now, this is what happened. When I got it inside, it actually looked great. It looked like it did when I put it outside. However, after a couple of minutes, it just started to droop because it was almost freeze-dried outside. So when I took it back in and it started to heat up, you can see the real damage. Now, there is nothing we can do to save this plant. So when you get severe cold damage, there is almost no way of saving it. Now, of course, we have to show you on a dragon plant as well. And for that, I actually need some help from our cameraman because he has a plant that is from his home that is severely cold damaged. So I think he'll have to tell you what actually happened.
Sure. So, hi guys, here it is. What actually happened here was that I had it outside because I got these white little furry fluffy things, pests, what are they called?
Mealybugs.
Mealybugs, yeah. So I had mealybugs and I followed the instruction. I took it out and I rinsed it off every day for 14 days, but I forgot it. I forgot it over winter and it's been standing outside for almost 7 months. I took it in today, specific for this video, to show you.
So we should say to the viewers, don't do that.
Yeah, I forgot and I'm really sad about it though. I love it. It's like a rock and roll wig right now.
But it's actually perfect because now we can show the viewers what it looks like. And this is also an extremely severe cold damage. Now, there is no returning from this because it's been exposed for such a long time to negative and extreme colds that this is completely dead. I can see that the stem itself is mushy, and if I started to pull this, it would probably break as well and just fall down. It's actually quite nice that it's holding on to the leaves. I can't pull them, but they're holding on quite strong still. But don't do that. Don't forget your plants outside, even if it's for a good cause and trying to get rid of pests. So this is a close-up of the stem, what it looks like. And it's actually a little bit mushy. I can push it and I feel that it's just, well, there's nothing there. Well, that's probably the saddest story we've had in our over 100 videos. But moving on. So what actually happens inside of the plant when it's exposed to these cold temperatures? Well, when you have extreme exposure like this, what actually happens is that the water inside of the cells, they freeze, expand, and they burst. So the cells actually are fatally damaged. There is no way of getting this plant back to life again. However, as I said before, this plant could actually prevail, because I don't know yet if the roots are damaged. And if I have only a little part of the stems here that is not dead and not damaged by that cold exposure, it could send out a new stem. So I would wait, let it look like this, and just wait to see if it's actually pushing out something new. And that extreme exposure actually shows you quite quickly. You will see this damage as soon as it comes into room temperature. It takes a couple of minutes, up to an hour, and then you can see that it is severely damaged. Now, what happens to a plant that is just medium damaged like this one? Now, this is, we could call it actually freeze-dried, because when it stands outside in cold temperatures, what happens is that that cold actually drags all of the moisture out of the plant. So that mushiness and almost wet on the leaves here is actually that water being pushed out from the leaves into the cold air. And this we can probably save. And we'll talk more about that later. But medium damage like this actually takes a while before you can see it. It can take in between 2 up to 5 days before it shows you that damage. But we can help the plant. So what can we physically do if we get a plant with cold damage? Well, the first and foremost thing is, of course, make sure it gets to room temperatures. Now, avoid trying to help the plant even further. Don't take it and put it next to a radiator. Don't take out your hairdryer and try and warm the plant. Just take it indoors and just leave it. Let it thaw or let it become room temperature by itself. Number 2, water the plant. As I said before, if you have medium cold like this on your plant, all of that moisture has been taken out of the plant. So usually it's extremely dry and it needs water. So after it has reached room temperature, water your plant. And make sure that the excess water goes out from the bottom of the pot, because you do not want water standing next to the roots when it's already damaged like this. But it wants water, it needs to rehydrate itself.
Quick question. Is it needed to be warm water or cold water? What temperature do you recommend?
We always use cold water. And by that I mean tap water that is a little bit cold. Or you could use room temperatured water, but we never ever add warm water to our plants. Never. Number 3, when this plant is in recovery, we've taken it inside, we've given it water, it needs to recover. Now place it somewhere where it gets a lot of light, but no direct sunlight. A lot of light, but no direct sunlight, because that direct sunlight could actually damage the plant even further. Number 4, don't fertilize a cold damaged plant. Just give it water when it needs water, and after a couple of weeks or at least a couple of months, then you can start adding fertilizer when the plant is showing you that it's starting to feel good again. Because that fertilizer could actually potentially harm the roots more. So just water, no fertilizer for at least a couple of months. Number 5, check the plant regularly. Just look to see that you still have parts of the plant that is actually looking okay. It doesn't need to look good, but it needs to look okay. If the plant starts to look like this after a couple of weeks, then okay, it's probably severely damaged and there is no returning from this. But if you see, as long as you see that some of the leaves, some of the stems look good or okay, then just let it recover. And as soon as it starts showing you that it wants to start to grow again, then you can go to the final step. And the final step, number 6, is when it's recovered, we can start to prune. And what we do then is that we take a look at the plant and see, okay, which leaves are looking good or okay. Now, if they are still wilting a lot, or if they have severe black spots, it can, depending on the type of plant, it can be yellow spots, it can also be red spots. I've also seen white spots from cold damage as well. But if you have a lot of spots, or you see that the leaves are very, very damaged, then we can start to prune away those damages. Now, we don't do that directly. We wait a couple of weeks or months before we start to prune, because you don't know which parts of the plant is still active. So after a few months, you can see, okay, these leaves are probably not doing anything because they are droopy, they're sad. You can feel that there is just no water inside of them. Or if you have completely damaged or brown parts of plants, you can start to prune. And you prune away everything that is not looking good. And you keep the ones that are looking good. Also, make sure to feel the stems or the branches of your plant to see that they are still hard. Because if they are extremely soft, or if you see that they are starting to come off, then there could be damage to the roots as well. They could not, maybe they're not even attached to the soil anymore. So feel that, just wiggle it a little bit and feel the stems. If they're mushy or if they're starting to move, then you can take them away. Otherwise, just leave them and let the plant continue to grow. So what can we do to prevent cold damage to our plants in the first place? Well, first of all, keep a watchful eye of your plants. Always look them over. Make sure to do that at least once a week. When you water your plants, for instance, take a look at them. To look to see, are they wilting? Do they have some black spots on them? Are there any other issues you can see? Because the quicker you can get those damages and do something about it, the better for the plant. So keep a watchful eye. Then, of course, try and relocate your plant. If you find anything on your plant, if you find that the leaves are wilting, if you find black spots or red spots or anything is wrong with your plant, relocate it. Move it to somewhere where it gets away from that cold. Now, there are places in your home that exposes your plant more to cold temperatures than others. One of those placements can be next to your outer door, your main door, because that is opening and closing a lot. So if you have a plant in that vicinity, then if you see anything on your plants, then move it from there. Another placement is, of course, your windowsill. Now, it could be that you're opening and closing the windows, but usually that is an indicator for you directly that, okay, I'm opening this, it's cold outside, I should move my plant. But the window can be a cold place anyway, because if it's standing on a windowsill and the leaves are actually touching the window itself, the glass, could be cold. And that could potentially harm the plant. And also, if you have your plant, let's say it's this plant, it's in recovery, you don't want to look at it, so you have it in between, on the windowsill, in between the glass and your curtain. It becomes a little microclimate or an enclosed area where you can get pockets of colder air. So make sure if you have plants there, look at them extra closely. Now, another time when you expose your plants to cold is of course when you're transporting them. It could be that you're moving in the winter. It could also be that you're buying a new plant. So what can we do to prevent that? If you know that it's cold outside, what can we do to prevent cold damage? Well, the easiest way is that if you know it's cold outside, make sure that you're taking your plants home in a heated car, for instance. But if you don't have that possibility, then what you can do is let the shop know that you want them to wrap the plant in paper or plastic. Now, I've done that to this Aglonema Maria here. It's the same type of plant inside of here. By just doing this, I'm actually protecting it from the extreme cold temperature. Now, even if it's really cold outside, if you have freezing temperatures outside, just a little thing like this can potentially save your plants. And if I transported it home without doing this, it could actually kill the plant. But by doing this, you could even get home without any damage at all. So a bonus tip for you. If you know that your plants are going to be exposed to colder temperatures for a longer period of time, let's say that you are moving from one apartment to another, maybe in another city or something, so it's going to be transported a long time, and there's no way of heating that truck. What can you do to try and minimize the risk of exposure here? Well, what I would do is that I would just before leaving, I would spray my plants with water and let it sit for maybe an hour or two. Because what happens then is that that moisture will actually be partially absorbed by the leaves. Some of it will still be a little bit on the leaves as well. And you could, if you have the possibility, also wrap it then in paper or plastic like this. But this means that when it's in that cold area for a longer period of time, and that cold just wants to drag all that moisture out of the plant, it actually has a buffer. You've helped the plant to rehydrate or hydrate before that transport. So spray it with water, let it sit for a while, then you transport your plant, and probably you won't have any problems. Now, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. That really helps our channel a lot. If you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, please do. Hit the bell as well so you get a notification every time we put up something new. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram, where you can get sneak previews on upcoming videos and sometimes a little bit more. Now, until next time, hej då!